Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Midday Live. My name is Bright Nanamfo. Coming up this afternoon, operations of the state broadcaster comes under intense pressure with a 44 million cedi debt. Government, however, has cut budgetary allocations to the Ministry of Information. Ghana Health Service identifies congestion in schools as one of the risk factors for the spread of meningitis. There are reports of Galamsey operations in the Tiwa forest. Despite Operation Vanguard's presence, we'll speak to the team on the ground. On the international front, at least 6,700 Rohingya Muslims were told have been killed in a month after violence broke out in Myanmar in August. That's according to Médecins Sans Frontières. We have entertainment and sports all coming up in the next 1 hour. Stay with us if you can. Thanks so much for your time. Beginning from here, the Ghana Health Service has identified congestion at senior high schools as one risk factor for the spread of meningitis. The head of disease surveillance, Dr. Franklin Siedu-Bequin, is reported to have said the crowded nature of classrooms and dormitories at senior high schools pose a challenge to students. At least one student of the Boku Senior High Technical School has died from what health authorities say is meningitis. 5 others, we're told, are on admission. Let's take a look at this issue of the Ghana Health Service raising congestion as a risk factor. The president of non-governmental organizations in health, Dr. Gabriel Bernacou, has just joined me on the phone lines. Quickly, good afternoon, sir, and grateful for your time.
Yeah, afternoon, and greetings to everybody in Ghana.
So let's begin to take a look at this. The issue of congestion has been flagged by the Ghana Health Service as a risk factor. Perhaps in the situation we find ourselves, how do we deal with it?
Yeah, thank you. This is a national public health issue. Is of great concern to everybody in Ghana, especially young people and women and children, where the situation can create more vulnerable safety net for them. So as we keep on advocating strongly that the Ghana Health Service have not prepared themselves well to respond to what is happening in the country now, given the fact that every year they understand and know that any time in November to April, the issues of meningitis, the issues of what they now call H1N1, the issue of other contagious diseases outbreaks is normal in their health system. So one would have expected that their health system would have been very robust now to take care of all these emergency situations. And our national budget is also supposed to take care of it so that anytime there's an issue, the Minister of Finance, in collaboration with the Minister of Health, should be able to release funds immediately to support the emergency health responses in the country. What we are just experiencing is one of lack of political will to finance emergency health response, two, the lack of leadership to be able to roll down campaigns and educational information in the regions and at the district level. And that's why we keep on pushing them that they have to do the writing. They can no longer be talking without doing the writing on the ground. We are not seeing them on the ground. They are supposed to roll out. It must not be in secrecy. It must be a public concern. So we are encouraging them to engage all stakeholders, the traditional council, the religious bodies, the civil society, the farmers, the private health facilities, the church facilities. All these institutions and other networks must be well engaged and coordinated so that we can have an effective dialogue and provide interventions that can minimize the anxiety, the depressional issues that is happening in the country. The other thing we want to put it forward is that Ghana Health Service have a unit. The unit is supposed to be responsible for public health education, health promotion, and preventive health services. Where are they? We want to see them. What are they doing? That, as at now, we have not seen them on national television. We have not seen them on private televisions. We have not seen them on other networks. What are they doing? What are they waiting for? The situation is similar to Ebola. And you and I know the devastation effect of Ebola in other countries. So are we sitting there having heard of H1N1, having heard of meningitis, which some of the health workers describe as normal, which is not normal? We can't accept this as normal. So we are calling on them and the president to come to the situation and ensure that we have a proper coordinated emergency response and educational program in Ghana, because we have just started the season, and it's not good for us to relax in this regard.
I'm grateful for your time. Dr. Gabriel Benaku is the president of non-governmental organizations in health, talking to me. We're still staying on the issue of congestion, and education authorities in Wa East in the Upper West region are battling congestion in schools. Now, in some schools, pupils, as many as 240 of them, learn in one classroom. School authorities are thinking about splitting such schools into two.
The Regional Director of Health Services recently asked one medical officer to be taking care of the district. So the arrangement is that every week he apportions 2 of his working days to attend to the clients in the district.
But this has not helped. The doctor is unable to make the time all. Sorry for playing the wrong story there. We'll bring you. We're talking about congestion in schools in Wa East district. In some schools, there are 240 pupils in one class. School authorities say efforts are being made to split such schools into two. We'll tell you more about that later on. Now, to some other stories. The German government, through MEC, a private government organization, is to construct a 25 million euro vaccine manufacturing center in Ghana. The center is to produce medicines to address tropical diseases and other ailments.
The construction is to begin from January 2018. The manufacturing center would be the first of its kind in the West African sub-region. Available figures indicate Africa produces less than 1% of the world's vaccines, although it consumes about 50%. With the construction of the vaccine manufacturing center, Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia said it would address tropical diseases.
It is clear with this that Ghana is going to have the first vaccine manufacturing factory in sub-Saharan Africa. That alone is major. It's really major for us and will be something to build on as far as our pharmaceutical industry is concerned.
Contractors on the project indicate that feasibility studies have almost been completed for the project to take off.
We will scout a process somewhere to in-license vaccines. We will transfer the processes on the plant. We will validate. We will train the local team on the running machines. We will help with their clinical studies.
Working with Merck, it gives the tacit acknowledgement and the credibility that Merck brings to a process like this to ensure that we will successfully implement.
We're staying with issues of congestion in classrooms, which has been flagged by the Ghana Health Service as a possible risk of the meningitis outbreak. We're speaking to the Executive Director of the Institute of Education Studies, Peter Anti, who's just joined me via Skype. Good afternoon, sir. Grateful for your time with us. Now, the issue of congestion in schools, how do we deal with it? Have we done enough to contain it?
Thank you very much. Right. I think that we have not been able to deal with this issue over the years, especially when we decided to introduce our free senior high secondary school, bearing in mind that this particular policy was going to increase enrollment. According to the 2018 budget that was read, the total enrollment in the senior high schools has increased by 32.2% as compared to the previous year. So it's clear that we have increased enrollment in the senior high schools. Now, what we were thinking would have been done is that this increment in enrollment would have gone with an expansion in the existing facilities and possibly increase in the various number of senior high schools that we have. But this has not been the case. We think that going forward, that is what we should do. We should first target decongesting the boarding schools, the boarding houses that we have. We should try and expand the various senior high school facilities that we have. And we should also focus on, in the long term, increasing the senior high schools that are in the system. One very important criteria that we have left out and that we have been since the inception of the free SHS policy has been the criteria that we will use to select people for boarding house and others for day house, for the day system. I think that as a whole, we have not been able to do that. We have not been able to set up a criteria that will mark that this group of people will go to the boarding house and this group of people will qualify for the day system. Because of that, the total number of boarding students that we have is something around 239,431, as against day students that is about 1,113,622. So you see that the disparity is marked, and our system is not so much able to contain this particular number of students. So we think that going forward, we should try and have a criteria that will separate or that will speculate that will state the rule for those who are going to be admitted into the boarding system and those who will be for the day system.
Peter, we're grateful for your time with us. Peter Anti is the Executive Director of the Institute of Education Studies, talking about the congestion in schools. In other stories, the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation is inundated with debts amounting to 44,989,671 cedis. It is currently in arrears of electricity bills to the tune of 16,816,000 cedis, which has resulted in frequent disconnections by the power utility. The first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joseph Osei-Wusu, has directed that its financial statements be investigated.
The Minister for Information moved the motion for the House to approve its 2018 budget estimates. The chairman of the committee, in seconding the motion, presented the committee's report, which considered the 107,346,000 allocation as woefully inadequate. An amount of 63,212,000 cedis was allocated to the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation compared to 87,458,000 allocation last year, indicating a reduction of 27%. The report indicated GBC was inundated with debts amounting to 44,989,671 cedis. It is currently in arrears of electricity bills to the tune of 16,816,000 cedis, which has resulted in frequent disconnections by the ECG. The ranking member of the committee, Alhaji ABA Fusedi, said services provided by GBC to other government institutions are not paid.
The GBC this year alone, just for the state and government functions, covered 407 assignments. Mr. Speaker, if we were to quantify that this in monetary terms, conservatively, it comes to about 13.3 million Ghana cedis that the state owes. Mr. Speaker, the state hasn't paid a penny.
Other members in their contributions bemoaned the scanty resources for the Information Services Department and the Ghana News Agency, a situation they complained was hampering effective dissemination of information. The majority leader, however, wanted management to be proactive in recovering its debts.
Political parties were advertised for altogether about 3-4 hours every day. A particular political party, and we all do know. Mr. Speaker, that is why we should delve much into this. How much space they bought, what was the cost, so that we'll be able to retrieve equivalent amounts to GTV, GBC. They will be able to settle their indebtedness. Mr. Speaker, if you don't know where you are coming from, you will not know where you are going. Mr. Speaker, it is important for us to situate the indebtedness of GBC in its proper context. The fundamental problem of GBC is encapsulated in the public service broadcasting paradigm that GBC is stuck in.
My guest in the studio is the Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa, Suleiman Abrahama. Good afternoon. Grateful for your time with us. How worrying is this? The state broadcaster in this kind of confusion, how worrying is this?
Well, I think that the whole challenge of GBC is a matter that ought to have been, thoroughly investigated and probed quite a long time ago. And I believe that this provides an opportunity for some introspection. This provides an opportunity for us to look into the operations of GBC better. I am of the view that GBC as we know it today, increasingly its relevance is fast dwindling. And I have always also held the view that if you take the current staff strength of GBC, with prudent management, I believe that GBC, for example, can operate with a third of the staff they have. Now, if you look within the industry, I don't know of any particular media organization that is infrastructurally endowed like GBC. We have had the opportunity of working across the regions, and every region that you visit, if you go to the GBC regional networks there, the kind of infrastructure they have, some of even the private stations here in Accra cannot boast of such infrastructure. And so you are talking about an institution that is well endowed in terms of the number of people that they have, in terms of the infrastructure they have, and also significantly, the major costs for operating media usually would be the staff costs in terms of salaries and so on. And we know that GBC staff are paid by government. So you then ask yourself, why should we then have the challenge that GBC is having? Bearing in mind that unlike entities such as the BBC, which are fully public service broadcasters, GBC operates in a way that allows it to also mobilize resources. I heard the majority leader, for example, talk about the 2016 elections and the role of GBC in terms of advertising and all of that. We as an organization, for example, engaged GBC on 2 occasions for coverage of town hall meetings in Kumasi and one in Accra. And on both occasions, we had to pay. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, together we paid about 100,000 Ghana cedis to GBC. And I know that through other mechanisms, GBC was also funded by other private bodies and so on. So besides the payments that may have been made by political parties for advertisement and the other corporate incomes they generated, plus the fact that staff of GBC are paid by government, and I believe that even when it comes to equipment and other stuff, government also provides substantial support. So you ask yourself, why should GBC find itself where it is? And I believe that this, as I said, gives an opportunity for us to really look into the operations of GBC.
How much money it is making and how the money is being used.
Yes, how much money is the station is or the organization is making, how resources are being utilized, and whether or not we need to keep GBC as it is. Because I think that GBC ought to have been reformed long ago. And the reforms would come in the form of policy changes, in the form of even the number of staff. I believe that we need to cut back on GBC staff. And I believe if you look at how much perhaps is going into staff remuneration, this is not to say that it's not important to employ people, but I believe that as elsewhere in the public sector, where I believe there's a lot of overstaffing, in terms of efficient management, in terms of efficiency in the way we utilize our resources, it is important for us to look at GBC in that context.
You earlier said that you want to say that the relevance of GBC is dwindling. Now, if that is indeed the case, why do you think government then would not be in a position or would have that political will to reform the state broadcaster?
Well, my view is that every government in power would want to take advantage of GBC. Every party in opposition would complain about GBC and the fact that they are not getting the kind of visibility that they ought to have from GBC. And once they get into power, the dynamics change, and then people in power would want to use GBC. I heard one of the minority MPs talk about how many events GBC has covered over the 1-year period, and whether or not government or they have been paid for that service. And I think the reforms would capture all of these. The fact that government entities and ministries, department agencies would want to use GBC in ways that are not prudent, and also the fact that, as last week Professor Kwame Kakari said, if you take the state-owned media, particularly also GBC, what happens quite often is what people would describe as the civil service journalism. And the fact that people feel GBC has become quite timid, they stay away from very controversial and very important issues, and so on and so forth. And I believe that collectively as a country, because GBC is a state property, we have a responsibility to look into this important institution. And the fact that it needs to be revived, the fact that it needs to be strengthened, should be a priority for all of us.
So the key thing here is reforms.
Yes, it is reforms. But then talking broadly about the budget, because I think this is within the context of the cut or the reduction of the budget to the Ministry of Information. I think it's important for us to also look at the ministry as an institution and what it exists to do. I think that the overall mandate really of the ministry is to sort of, to put it in a nuanced way, help people understand government activities, government operations, and so on. And recently what they've been doing, which I think is important, the town hall conversations, which is bringing the people closer to governance, which is very important. But beyond that, if you want to put it bluntly, you would say that this is an entity that exists to serve as government PR machinery. And so if the government, in its own wisdom, decides that the entity or our outfit that drives our PR and does all the communication for us, we have to cut the budget for it, then of course, what would be
there could be a just reason for doing that.
The other thing is we need to also look at the fact that in mid 2014, the NDC regime decided to scrap that ministry and put it under the Ministry of Communications. And today we have the Ministry of Communications with a minister, 2 deputy ministers. We have the Ministry of Information, a minister with 3 deputy ministers. So we need to look at what was the allocation when the ministries were combined versus what it is now. If you put together the allocation to the Communications Ministry and the reduced budget of the Information Ministry, would it still come up as, you know, a reduction in allocation for the communications infrastructure sector?
I'm grateful for your time with us. He's the Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa, Suleiman Ibrahim. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, in other stories tonight, the management of the National Service Scheme has rescinded its decision to impose an insurance package on service personnel after it was sued by some aggrieved personnel. The scheme, in a statement copied to TV3 News, indicated the policy is now optional. A statement signed by the Executive Director, Mustafa Yusuf, said management and the scheme has suspended the mandatory insurance of 15 cedis deduction from the monthly allowance of service personnel. It said a decision to make the policy optional for interested national service personnel was taken at an emergency executive council meeting of NASPA in Accra on Wednesday. My guest is a public relations officer of the scheme, Ambrose Ntie. Good afternoon. Grateful for your time.
Good afternoon.
Let's start from here. So, the decision to reverse, how did it come about?
Yeah, I'm sure if we have followed media reportage, there have been a number of concerns raised by the national service personnel themselves, sections of the public, and of course including the media, with regard to the compulsory nature of the policy. So what we did was to advise the National Service Personnel Association executives to convene a meeting to look at the policy. Because this decision was taken at Congress, we as a scheme could not just say that it should be abandoned. There was a need for them to go through the process in accordance with the provisions of their constitution. Now, in the absence of National Congress, the National Executive Committee has a mandate to make major decisions for NASPA. So they convened an emergency meeting yesterday and deliberated upon the issue. All the regional executives who came, or the regional president who came, indicated that from their various regions, the service personnel had opted for the optional, part, and that means that you should change the system, make it optional. For those who are interested, would sign on to the policy. So after the decision was taken, they wrote to the scheme, the executive director and the directors, management generally. It was based on that we also issued a statement to suspend the deduction of the 15 Ghana cedis, which was going to be effected in November. So it's not going to happen. And for those who are interested, would be given the option to sign on to the policy.
I see. Is the misunderstanding linked to the suspension of the NASPA president?
We were not part of their meeting. They have the mandate to have their own meeting, but right. From the communique that we received after the meeting, it indicated that one exec member had laid a complaint against the NASPA president, and in accordance with the provisions of their constitution, if anything of such is done, and of course also because they said he was showing disrespect to the members of the council, there was a need for him to be asked to step aside, for a committee to be constituted to go into the matter. So for now, somebody is acting, and a committee is going to be set up to do that, to look into the matter.
The optional thing, has the modalities been drawn out?
Not yet. This decision was taken only yesterday.
Yeah, only yesterday.
And we believe, in fact, before I came here, I saw some of the executives getting ready to go into a meeting. I believe strongly that these are some of the things that they will be discussing. They will have to also discuss the issue with the insurance companies, those who are going to offer the policy, and see whether they will maintain the same package or there will be modifications and all that, because we cannot even tell the premium now whether they will still maintain the 15 cedis or there will be one-time premium and all that. So all these things will be looked at before it is put before the people, and then they will accept and sign on to the policy.
Some insurance experts have argued that since the scheme is the employer, the scheme should put together a package for the service personnel. What do you think about it?
It's not a bad idea. The scheme works for the state. So whichever way it goes, if the scheme even makes any proposal, it will still go back to the state. Let's not forget that we run a budget, and our budget is approved by Parliament in accordance with the various statutes. Yesterday, for instance, we were in Parliament to present our budget for approval. That one has not been captured yet in the budget. So I think that these are things that we can look at going forward. And because these are young people who are serving their country, if there's a need for the country to ensure all of them, I think it should be a major policy, and I'm sure if the proposal comes up and it goes to Parliament, the state will look at it and the best thing will be done for them.
What about, finally, the personnel whose allowances were told yet to be paid? Some confusion with the data? Is that the case?
There are a number of reasons why one's allowance may have delayed. A number of reasons. I have spoken to a number of no, and there's about 7 reasons or even more. I'm aware that somebody said something very funny that has to do with some poor handwriting and all that. I'm sure you may have read it from there. That was not the focus of the argument. The point is that if you have been posted to your national service, you go through biometric registration. If you haven't done that, your allowance will be blocked. You are supposed to ensure that at the end of every month, or middle of the month, you fill the monthly duty report form. If you don't fill, your allowance will not come. Some people have problems with wrong e-switch numbers. Your allowance will not come. Double e-switch numbers, your allowance will not come. If you block your allowance at the point of collection with your any wrong finger, what we call the emergency finger, it will block, and therefore allowance will not come. These are all reasons. And I indicate that, look,
so the handwriting isn't one of them?
It's one of them, and that was the point I'm going to make. Now, for the monthly report form, you fill with handwriting.
Right.
And then you send it to the district, and then people will input the data. Exactly. The data. So if it is not clear, the person typing may type a wrong thing. Once the name is wrong, it's spelled wrongly, the e-switch system will not pick it. So it was only an advice.
The argument is that there's a phone number on the form.
Exactly, sure.
So if the handwriting is bad, you just call
no,
the person.
The point is that the person doing the data entry may type it. I'm not saying this is a major case. It's possible. No, this is a human institution. We all make mistakes. Look, you may be typing T, it will type Z, or it will type F, it will type something.
Right.
And I indicate that some of these things come from us, our staff. So we acknowledge some of the mistakes that come and we correct them. So you pick on only that one and you say that is the cause of delay in allowance. In any case, this is quite interesting because if you have, let's say, 1,000 people whose allowances have been delayed, it means all of them have poor handwriting by the caption. And that is wrong. That's not good journalism. You don't say that, of course, unless, of course, the person or myself, I did not communicate well. And I don't think I did not, because I've given 7 reasons, possible reasons. So what we have to do? Yes, what we have to do is that tell the service personnel, out of all the 7, which one is possible that you may have faulted there. Okay. So you don't just pick that one and say that if your allowance has not come, it means you have poor handwriting. The students will even be angry with you. You don't say that. So that is how they think. But I think that what is important is that the service personnel themselves know some of the reasons and they are correcting them.
I'm grateful, Ambrose, for your time with us. He's the public relations officer of the National Service Scheme talking to us. Let's step on the break for now. Stay with us. There is more coming up. Next on business, a group calling itself the Circle Traders Association has embarked on a demonstration to call attention to the influx of Nigerian retail traders in the area. They lament an illegal construction project currently underway at the Tiptoe Lane will rid them of their daily bread. The situation, they say, is unacceptable. Solis Rose Quarty has more.
So many people depend on their sources of livelihood for survival. Therefore, it's no surprise that when that source of livelihood seems to be threatened, things take a different turn. I'm currently at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle, specifically Tiptoe Lane. That is quite popular for trading activities, and there seems to be some sort of agitation going on by a group calling itself the Circle Traders Association. I'm here with the organizer for the association, Lord Appiah Dankwa.
There is this rumor peddling around that there is a Nigerian groups have come together, organized some money and giving it to a contractor who is a Ghanaian to fund for them. And they are developing the structure here to clear the Ghanaians who have been there for the past 30 years off the streets. The GIMPC law prohibits foreigners from doing retail business. But here in Circle, we are battling with customers with them, which is uncalled for.
I'm also here with one of the members, Maxwell and Zani.
On 30th June 2017, we received an eviction letter from one gentleman called Marcus Sapon. We had a meeting with the AMA Assembly, and then he promised us that under his jurisdiction, nothing of that sort would take place. Then they instructed the project was broken. That's about 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago, this was...
The structure was high as this, and then it was demolished. For the third time, this is the third time. So we don't know where they are getting the motivation. We cannot lose this place.
O kan kwafo na yema o letter ni bi.
Me pacha oni ka kire se one year babesi store ewo eho side. Ye nam nipa 13, nipa 13 so one be sister store here. Enye nyina de ye nja store no on the Nigeria for. Ye so Ghana for na hefa na ye kwakotena. Since 95, ye tue bibia ni so na yira fafa yen ka ye income tax na ye tuya. Ye pe baby etinwa.
Right, you heard that for yourselves. An impassioned plea by the traders or Circle Traders Association, basically lamenting that their livelihoods are being threatened and that the Nigerian traders in the area are planning to take over their business. My name is Solis Rose Quarty, reporting for TV3, Circle, Accra.
There's more of that on 3news.com. But in other business news, the German government is to construct a 4.5 million euro gas plant at Aboise to augment the energy supply in the country. Feasibility studies are underway, and construction of the plant is to begin from next year and concluded by 2021.
The construction of the gas plant is expected to be the lowest price of energy to be sold. The plant is to generate 330 megawatts of power for the first phase for 2023, while the second phase will begin from 2025. Vice President Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia was confident the power generated will address electricity challenges.
Ghanaians can testify to what happens when we have issues with energy supply. And so that is very, very important that this MOU has been signed, and we want to move forward to construction and delivery of this project.
Minister for the Economic Division of the German government lauded Ghana government for its commitment.
We are living in a century of digitization. Meeting of the people, getting people together, getting people in contact is the things you need to really start a business.
The company to construct the gas plant, Siemens, expressed huge commitment to speed up the process.
We identified them as one of the potential IPPs in the country. They were most successful in their proposition, and we're very pleased that they have chosen our technology, F-class technology, which is most efficient in the world class of combined cycle power plants.
We're mobilizing additional shareholders to contribute equity to the project. The balance of the funding will be in the form of debt, which will be underpinned by the ECA from the German government.
Chief Executive Officer for Ghana Infrastructure Fund, Solomon Asamoah, said this will help government to achieve its flagship programs.
This project took our eye because it's going to be the largest power project ever done in Ghana, and it's going to be the cheapest price. So we think it's a good project that the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund should support.
And there is more business on 3news.com. Ebi Bright used to be one of the major names on the lips of Ghanaians as being amongst the best actors in the country. After going into politics and losing, she opens up about how she recovered in an exclusive interview with Ajwa Amofa.
Elections, actress Ebi Bright, who ran for the parliamentary seat of the Tema Central constituency, has been on the low. But what has she been up to? And is she going to go back to acting very soon? We are here to find out. Regardless of the many attacks and criticisms that surrounded her bid in the 2016 elections, she says the process was refreshing and she does not regret making that decision. Ebi explained the youth now appreciates the role of movie stars in national development after she contested for the elections.
Midtown Girl, I think, is a really, really interesting story. It's something that the average West African young woman or man can relate to. It explores many of the issues that affect us or confront us in our relationships.
Though she could not win the Tema Central seat, she says the period of recovery has been that of reflection and enlightenment. Regarding her bikini pictures which popped up on social media during the campaign period, she said she had kept quiet on it because they were irrelevant, noting that she had been decent throughout her acting career.
Those were at my private birthday party at my beach house. So there was nothing else that I should have been wearing if I was going in and out of the water. I wish, honestly, that people would be more concerned about the very real struggles around us, you know, and stop fixating on individuals and their own private life.
We must kill her tonight.
We can't kill her.
I don't trust her.
She'll betray us like a million like a book.
We must poison her.
About the movie industry, Ebi said its fortunes were dwindling, needing urgent revamp.
We've had the so-called glamour movies and then the Kumawood movies, and it's almost like it's two different Ghanaian cultures. We have to find the middle ground. Also, maybe what the Kumawood movies are suffering from is that we're not challenging the imagination of our audience. We're just feeding them, you know, the same thing that they're comfortable with. We need to improve that. But also, I think the glamour side of it needs to be more realistic about the true picture of the regular urban or contemporary Ghanaian.
As to whether or not she will go back to acting, she said time will tell. Meanwhile, she noted that she has no plans of contesting again in the 2020 elections.
And I'm sure you heard about the song One Corner and what it did to music-loving fans. In Nigeria, we're told that that song appeared as one of the best in terms of those who are searching for songs. That song was released in July 2017, and in 2017, that year in Nigeria, most searchers sought for that song.
ZionFelix.net, searching for the top 10 most searched songs in Nigeria for this year on Google Trend, saw One Corner on the list. One Corner placed fourth, beating hit songs like If by Davido, Mad Over You by Runtown, among others. The viral song was the only Ghanaian hit to appear on the 2017 top 10 most searched songs in Nigeria. It will be recalled that top Nigerian stars, including Ricardo Banks, Foz and Davido, joined the One Corner craze. Interestingly, One Corner was the 8th most searched song in Ghana in 2017, with Taking Over by Shatta Wale placing first on the list.
We'll see how it fares whilst we move into 2018. That's how we're wrapping up the show for now. But before a look at our top stories, Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, we're told, is under intense pressure following a 44 million cedi debt. The Ghana Health Service has identified congestion as one of the risk factors for the spread of meningitis. Thanks so much for your time. There's more news on 3news.com. My name is Bright Onamfo. Good afternoon.